In a daring attempt to push the limits of adventure, a famous YouTuber ventures deep into a forbidden cave section, hoping to capture the ultimate thrill for his viewers. What begins as an ordinary exploration quickly takes a dark turn. When a rescue team finally finds the camera footage, what they uncover will leave you speechless. But what was caught on tape might not be what you expect. Stay tuned to uncover the shocking truth. 5 million subscribers didn't come easy. Max King Reynolds studied the analytics on his laptop, the glow illuminating his face in the darkened hotel room. 3 months of declining viewership. The algorithm was punishing him for playing it safe. His last video, exploring an abandoned mineshaft in Colorado, barely hit 800,000 views. A year ago, that same content would have pulled 3 million minimum. "You need something bigger," his manager's voice played in his head. "The audience is bored. They've seen it all." The hotel room was littered with specialized gear. His trademark: red helmet with a mounted 4K camera, custom lighting rigs designed for extreme environments, 3 backup cameras, and climbing equipment that cost more than most cars. Equipment wasn't the problem. Content was. Max pulled up the email that had arrived 2 days ago. A tip from a subscriber claiming to be a former park ranger at Blackwater Caverns. The message detailed a restricted section, sealed off since 1997 after 3 separate incidents. 6 explorers had vanished. The official explanation cited structural instability and dangerous gas pockets. Unofficial local theories mentioned everything from underground rivers to something less natural. "Perfect," Max whispered, already visualizing. The thumbnail, his shocked expression illuminated by his headlamp, some ominous shadow in the background, and the bold text, "I found what took them." His phone buzzed. Sam, his reluctant camera operator. "Tell me you're not serious about Blackwater," Sam's text read. "That place is legitimately dangerous, not YouTube dangerous. Actually dangerous." Max ignored it, pulling up the cavern schematics he'd purchased from a former survey team member. The restricted deep section branched off approximately 2 miles into the main tourist-accessible areas. The entrance had been sealed with a reinforced gate and concrete barriers, but the blueprints showed 3 possible alternate access points through narrow passages. It would be tight, but manageable with the right equipment. His laptop chimed. Another email from his YouTube partner manager. "Your channel has experienced a 22% decrease in engagements over the last quarter. We recommend reviewing your content. Strategy to maintain preferred partner status." Max closed the email with a sharp click. Preferred partner status meant priority in the recommendation system, better ad rates, and exclusive opportunities. Losing it would destroy everything he'd built over the past 5 years. The Cavaking empire wasn't just a YouTube channel. It was merchandise. The signature red helmets and headlamps selling for $199.99 on his website. It was speaking engagements at adventure tourism conferences. It was sponsorship deals with outdoor equipment manufacturers. It was his identity. Cavern was the answer. Go where others fear to tread. Do what authorities expressly forbid. Max pulled up the Blackwater Caverns website, navigating to their history page. The public sections had been discovered in 1924, with commercial tours beginning in 1956. The deep section had been discovered during expansion work in 1983, briefly opened for specialized tours, then permanently closed following the first disappearance. In 1992, the page made no mention of the subsequent vanishings. His phone buzzed again. This time Jess, his audio specialist. "Sam says you're considering Blackwater. Please tell me this is just another one of your crazy ideas that dies after a good night's sleep." Max texted back immediately. "Double your usual rate plus a 1 OK bonus. If we get past the restricted area barriers. Need you on this one." 3 dots appeared as Jess typed, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, you're insane. But I need the money. No unauthorized risks, and we turn back at the first sign of actual danger. Max smiled, already knowing he'd ignore any such conditions once they were inside. 20 minutes later, Sam reluctantly agreed to the same terms. The Cavaking pulled up local news archives, searching for information about the disappearances. The reporting was sparse. A spelunking incident in 1992, 2 university researchers missing in 1995, and 3 members of an unauthorized exploration team vanishing in 1997. The last incident had prompted the permanent sealing of the deep section and the installation of a modern security system throughout the caverns. That wouldn't stop him. Nothing would. Not when his channel, his livelihood, his identity was at stake. Max opened his primary camera, checking the low light capability settings. State-of-the-art equipment designed for the darkness. Battery life of 8 hours with the extended packs. Multiple redundancies. On his second monitor, he pulled up his most successful video from last year, exploring a flooded cave system in Mexico with 8.2 million views. The comments scrolled past. Cavaking is insane. How does he keep finding these places? No one does extreme like Max. His fingers moved to his keyboard, typing a new video title. I found the forbidden section of America's most haunted cave, gone wrong. Max leaned back, already imagining the view counter spinning upward, the comments section exploding. The algorithm pushing his content to millions of new viewers. Whatever waited in the darkness of Blackwater caverns, it couldn't be as terrifying. As irrelevance, specialized caving equipment covered every inch of Max Reynolds' living room floor, each piece meticulously arranged for his pre-expedition inventory check. 3 Petzl Ultra Rush headlamps with extended battery packs, redundant communication systems, 200 meters of dynamic rope, ascenders, descenders, carabiners, and a custom-modified DJI drone equipped with infrared capabilities for tunnel reconnaissance. Max's hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking each item before placing it into his expedition pack. You're actually serious about this, Sam Marshall said, watching from the doorway, his professional-grade Sony FX6 camera hanging loosely by his side. Blackwater's deep section isn't just restricted, it's condemned. There's a reason they installed those steel barriers after the 2018 incident. Max didn't look up. 5 million subscribers, Sam. 5 million, and dropping by 20,000 every week. His fingers tested the tension on a locking carabiner. We need something spectacular, something no one else has done. Something no one else has survived, Jess Chun muttered, entering with her sound equipment. She placed her Zoom F6 recorder on the table, 6 channels of crystal-clear audio capability to capture whatever waited below. The Speleological Society explicitly labeled it as structurally unsound after the earthquake. That's before we even discuss the disappearances. Max's YouTube channel played silently on a wall-mounted screen, analytics showing a clear downward trend in engagement metrics. The pressure was visible in the tightness around his eyes, the slight shake in his normally steady hands. Dr. Hoffman is waiting downstairs, Sam said. You said you wanted expert input. Well, he's the foremost authority on Blackwater caverns, and he's not happy. Max nodded, finally looking up. Send him up. Maybe he can mark some points of interest on our route map. Dr. Hoffman's weathered face carried the experience of 40 years in subterranean exploration. His eyes narrowed at the equipment spread across the floor. You contacted me under false pretenses, Mr. Reynolds. You said this was about documenting the approved sections of Blackwater. We'll start there, Max replied, unfolding a topographical map across his gear. But I need to know about access. Points to the deep section. The parts beyond the third junction that were sealed off. Absolutely not. Hoffman's voice cut like a knife. 3 experienced teams have vanished there since 1997. The 2018 teen's only survivor spent 6 months in psychiatric care and still can't explain what happened to his colleagues. Jess's hands tightened around her audio recorder. What exactly did he say? That they weren't alone down there. Hoffman's expression darkened, that something in the darkness responded to them, started mimicking their voices. Sam involuntarily checked his camera's battery level, a nervous habit developed over years of expedition filming. Maybe we should reconsider the destination. There's that newly discovered cenote system in. No. Max's voice had that familiar edge, the one that had pushed them into hurricane winds on Mount Washington and through active landslide zones in Peru. Blackwater's deep section is exactly what we need. The algorithm rewards extreme content. The doorbell rang, interrupting the tension. Max checked his security camera feed. It's Davidson. Michael Davidson entered without pleasantries, his rescue service patch still affixed to his jacket, despite being retired for 3 years. Heard from Hoffman you're planning to enter the deep section. His eyes scanned the equipment. Those standard headlamps won't last. The deep section drains batteries. No one knows why. That's impossible, Jess said, but her voice lacked conviction. So were the temperature inversions we recorded and the magnetic anomalies. Davidson placed a worn notebook on the table. This is from the 2018 rescue attempt. My final operation. Before I quit, we found 1 survivor and 3 empty harnesses, still attached to their ropes. Bodies never recovered. Max's equipment sensors began malfunctioning, compass needles spinning erratically. Temperature readings fluctuated on his digital thermometer. No one mentioned it. Whatever you think you'll find down there, Davidson said, heading toward the door. It already knows you're coming. After he left, silence filled the apartment. Sam looked at the malfunctioning equipment, then at Jess, who had gone pale. Double rate, Max finally said. I'll pay you both double. We leave tomorrow at dawn. Outside, thunder rumbled across a cloudless sky. Darkness swallowed the beam of Max's tactical headlamp as it penetrated the gaping mouth of Blackwater Caverns. The October air hung heavy with moisture, creating a thin fog that danced in their light beams. Max Cavaking Reynolds adjusted his GoPro Max 360, ensuring it captured both his face and the Forbidden's entrance behind him. Welcome back to the channel, Cave Crew. His voice echoed against the limestone walls, amplified by the natural acoustics. Today, we're going where no YouTuber has ever dared, the deep section of Blackwater. Sam checked his Sony FX6 camera settings, adjusting the aperture to compensate for the low light conditions. His hands moved with practiced efficiency despite the growing unease in his gut. Audio levels good, Jess. Jess monitored her Zoom H6 recorder, nodding silently. The cave entrance was picking up something odd, a low-frequency hum that shouldn't be there. She adjusted her headphones, isolating the sound. Getting some weird interference. Could be underground water or maybe electrical lines. Max ignored them both, focusing on his opening monologue about the cavern's history. His 5 million subscribers wouldn't care about audio issues. They wanted danger, mystery, the Forbiddens. His viewership had dropped 22% in the last quarter. This expedition would fix that. Let's move, Max commanded, shouldering his 65-liter expedition pack containing emergency rations, backup lighting, and spare batteries. The specialized cave exploration gear had cost nearly $6,000, but views would make it worthwhile. Remember standard cave formation. I lead, Sam follows with the main camera. Jess takes the rear position for sound capture. 20 meters inside, they encountered the first barrier. Yellow caution tape stretched across the passage, accompanied by a National Park Service sign declaring Danger Nitrogen Monoxide, ENTR, why unstable cave section. Max's headlamp illuminated the warning as he ducked under without hesitation. Got that on camera? Sam? the moment we cross into the forbidden zone. Sam nodded, his 4K lens capturing everything while trying to maintain stable footage on the uneven ground. The main passage narrowed, ceiling height dropping to force them into a crouch. Temperature dropped noticeably, 62 degrees Fahrenheit according to Max's environmental monitor. Detecting a 5-degree temperature drop, Max narrated for the footage. Classic. Sign of a significant chamber ahead. Jess paused, directional microphone aimed at the darkness ahead, hearing something. Water dripping, but irregular pattern. She checked her recording levels, making sure the sensitive equipment captured the subtle sounds. There's something else too, almost like breathing. Max's expression brightened. Perfect. Viewers love that creepy audio stuff. 300 meters in, the passage opened to a cathedral-like chamber. Their lights couldn't reach the ceiling, creating the illusion of an underground night sky. Unusual rock formations protruded from the walls, not stalactites or stalagmites, but something different. Geometric, almost deliberate in appearance. Sam, get footage of these formations. 360-degree pan. Jess, capture room acoustics. Sam's camera revealed markings on the far wall, not graffiti but older. Much older. Max, you need to see this. Sam's voice echoed across the chamber. The markings resembled crude pictographs. Stick figures with elongated limbs surrounding a central circular pattern. Below them, half buried in sediment, lay a rusted carabiner and frayed rope remnant. Previous explorers' equipment, Max observed, kneeling to examine it. The metal showed significant corrosion as it had been there for years. This will look great in the thumbnail. Jess removed her headphones suddenly, face paling. Did you hear that? Both men stopped to listen. The silence was absolute, unnatural for even a cave. Environment. Hear what? Max asked, irritation creeping into his voice. Time wasted was content lost. Voices, whispering. Jess replayed her recording, but the sound was absent. It was there, I swear. Max rolled his eyes dramatically for the camera. Classic. Cave acoustics playing tricks. Let's push deeper. As they prepared to enter the next passage, Sam's primary light flickered and died. His backup activated automatically, casting harsher shadows against the ancient markings. Equipment failure. Already? Max sounded almost pleased. Perfect for building tension in the edit. They didn't notice how the pictograph seemed to shift when viewed through camera lenses, or how the ambient temperature had dropped another 7 degrees without triggering Max's monitor, or how the cave passage ahead led directly toward an area marked on geological surveys as an unexplored anomaly. The deep section of Blackwater Caverns was about to reveal why it had been forbidden for so long. The limestone passage narrowed to barely 18 inches as max. Cavicking, Reynolds assessed the barrier between standard exploration territory and the forbiddens. Deep section of Blackwater Caverns. His headlamp illuminated calcite formations that resembled teeth, seeming to warn against further intrusion. Behind him, Sam adjusted the low light settings on the expedition camera while Jess monitored audio levels, both wearing expressions that communicated clear reluctance. Final equipment check, Max commanded, his voice echoing slightly in the confined space. Comm status? Surface link degrading, Jess reported, professional despite her obvious anxiety. Signal strength down to 42%. Once we cross that threshold, we'll likely lose all outside communication. Sam lowered the camera momentarily. Max, this is the point of no return. Backup extraction protocols won't work beyond this barrier. We'd be operating completely dark. Max's expression hardened as he checked his specialized GPS unit, the device already struggling to maintain positioning data in the dense rock environment. The team had bypassed 3 separate security barriers to reach this position, each marked with increasingly severe warning signs. The last one had been explicit. Absolutely no entry, multiple fatalities, active danger zone. That's exactly the point, Max replied, adjusting his helmet cam for optimal recording angle. 5 separate expedition teams have disappeared beyond this point. The video will be worth millions of views. The confined passage amplified Jess's sudden exhale of frustration. This isn't about safety anymore. This is about your subscriber count. You knew what this was when you signed on, Max countered, his tone measured but firm. The contract was clear. Sam's headlamp illuminated the micro-expressions crossing Jess's face. Fear, anger, resignation. The contract didn't mention suicide, she muttered, but continued checking her equipment nonetheless. Through the narrow opening, their lights revealed a chamber unlike anything in the mapped sections, massive stalactites, hung like ancient spears from a ceiling that disappeared into darkness. The air felt different here. Denser, almost pressurized against their eardrums. Oxygen level assessment, Max ordered, reverting to the procedural language he used in his videos to project expertise. 93% of surface normal, Sam reported after checking the handheld monitor, temperature dropping 2 degrees from last checkpoint. Max maintained his authoritative facade, but his elevated breathing betrayed his excitement. His channel had lost 200,000 subscribers in the past quarter. This footage would reverse that trend instantly. Proceed to insertion point, he directed, using quasi-military terminology that his viewers responded to. Standard formation, I take point. The squeeze through the passage was technically challenging. Max went first, his athletic frame barely fitting through the narrowest section. The sound of his equipment scraping against stone sent microscopic dust particles dancing in their light beams. Sam followed, struggling to protect the expensive camera equipment while maintaining balance. Jess hesitated at the entrance, her hand resting on a final warning sign bolted into the rock. Beyond this point, you are presumed dead. Nitrogen monoxide rescue attempts authorized. Final communications check, she announced, activating her satellite uplink device. The signal strength indicator blinked weakly, then flatlined completely, as expected. All outside communication lost. Max turned back, his headlamp creating harsh shadows across his face. This is it. The point where we make history or become it. Double rate, Sam suddenly announced. You pay double what we agreed or I'm not continuing. Max's expression flickered between annoyance and calculation. Done, he agreed without hesitation, revealing how valuable this footage was to him. As they moved deeper into the chamber, their lights revealed abandoned equipment. A rusted carabiner, a shredded backpack half embedded in calcite, a single boot cemented to the floor by mineral deposits. Evidence of previous explorers who never returned. Camera check, Max ordered, his voice now carrying an unnatural echo that none of them commented on. We need to document everything from this point forward. Rolling, Sam confirmed. The cameras. Indicator light creating a small red dot in the overwhelming darkness. The final barrier had been crossed. Whatever waited in the depths of Blackwater Cavern's forbidden section would be captured for Max's millions of viewers, assuming any of them made it back to upload the footage. Bioluminescent fungi clinged to the cave walls, casting an eerie blue glow that shouldn't exist this deep underground. Max Reynolds adjusts his GoPro headlamp, the beam cutting through darkness that seems to swallow light rather than reflect it. The cave's forbidden section lives up to its reputation. No tourist paths, no safety rails, just raw geological formations, untouched by human development. Check your equipment, Max instructs, his voice echoing strangely. Battery levels, audio check, light test. Sam's camera swings toward the ceiling, revealing stalactites that twist in unnatural spirals. Geologically impossible formations. The footage wavers slightly, digital artifacts appearing at the edges of the frame. Batteries at 87%, Sam reports, confusion evident in his voice. That can't be right. It was fully charged when we entered this section 20 minutes ago. Jess taps her audio recorder, frowning at the display. Getting weird interference. Some kind of low-frequency hum that's contaminating the ambient track. Max's face lights up with excitement rather than concern. His subscriber count flashes in his mind. This is exactly the content that will reverse his channel's declining views. Mysterious, unexplainable, viral-worthy. Keep rolling, he commands, moving deeper into the chamber. This formation shouldn't exist at this depth. The geological composition doesn't support bioluminescence. The camera pans across the cavern, revealing a vast chamber that opens unexpectedly. From the narrow passage they've been following, the ceiling soars at least 40 feet above them, covered with the glowing blue organisms that pulse rhythmically. The footage captures it perfectly, but the audio track picks up something else. Whispers that weren't noticed during filming. Temperatures dropped, Jess notes, checking her equipment. Down nearly 15 degrees from the last chamber. That's not normal for stable cave systems. Sam's camera suddenly loses focus, then regains it. Another battery bar disappears from his display. Equipment's acting up. Something's draining our power. Max ignores the warning signs, moving toward a formation. In the center of the chamber, a stalagmite column rises from the floor, but it's grown in a perfect spiral pattern that defies natural cave formation processes. The stone itself appears to shimmer slightly when caught in direct light. This is incredible, Max whispers, reaching out to touch the formation. Totally unique cave morphology. This'll break the internet. The camera captures something Max doesn't see, a subtle movement in the shadows behind him. When played back frame by frame later, analysts will debate whether it's a visual artifact or something solid moving through the darkness. Which way? Sam asks, pointing his camera at 3 different passages leading from the main chamber. They all look the same. We should mark our path, Jess suggests, removing chalk from her pack. I'm losing orientation down here. Max consults his cave map, but the confident expression slips from his face. None of these passages should exist according to the geological surveys. They've ventured beyond charted territory. That one, he decides, pointing to the leftmost passage. The airflow suggests it opens to a larger system. As they move toward the chosen path, the camera briefly pans across the chamber one final time. The footage reveals 3 distinct shadow movements that none of the explorers noticed in real time, humanoid shapes shifting between stalagmites, staying just outside the light's reach. Battery's at 54% now, Sam reports, alarm evident in his voice. Something's not right. It's draining too fast. Audio's picking up frequencies outside normal range, Jess adds, adjusting her headphones. Almost sounds like voices. Max's excitement overrides caution. Content like this appears once in a career. Legitimately unexplainable phenomena. The holy grail of adventure YouTubers. Keep moving, he insists, leading them toward the passage. Whatever is causing the equipment issues is probably what makes this section restricted. Some kind of electromagnetic anomaly. The camera captures their entry into the new passage, and something else when they're no longer looking back. All the bioluminescent organisms in the main chamber simultaneously dim, plunging it into darkness as though responding to their departure. Behind them, something moves in that perfect darkness. The camera's sensitive microphone picks up what sounds like footsteps, following at a measured distance. Jess's footsteps echo through the limestone chamber as she storms away from Max, her headlamp's beam cutting angrily through the darkness. The camera footage wobbles as Sam turns to Max, catching the YouTuber's expression. Not concern, but rather annoyance at the disruption to his shooting schedule. She just needs a minute, Max mutters, checking his equipment instead of following her. Keep rolling. We'll get some B-roll of these formations while we wait. The timestamp on the recovered footage shows 16:42, exactly 17 minutes before the first real signs of trouble begin. "Max, she went off path." Sam's voice carries the first edge of genuine concern. "There's no trail markers that way." Through the camera's night vision filter, Max's face appears ghostly green as he finally processes the situation. "How long has she been gone?" His voice has lost its performative quality, the first authentic moment captured since their descent began. 7 minutes, Sam responds, already packing up the secondary lighting rig. No response on the short-range radios. The footage cuts to a search sequence, methodical at first, then increasingly frantic. Max's voice calls Jess's name, the cave distorting his shouts into something unrecognizable on the return echo. Sound analysis would later reveal anomalies in these echoes, such as additional syllables that weren't present in the original calls. Standard protocol for lost cave personnel is to remain in place. Max recites, his YouTube research failing him as his voice cracks. But she might not be following protocol. "She took a left at the junction," Sam reports, his camera work becoming more steady as his military training takes over. "I can see thermal residue from her handprint on the wall here." The footage stabilizes as Sam adopts proper search techniques, methodically scanning each section of the passage before moving forward. The camera captures what the human eye missed, a set of footprints leading toward a narrow fissure. The sediment disturbed in a dragging pattern dot at 18:15. They discover Jess's sound equipment abandoned near a small water passage. The high-quality boom microphone lies precisely arranged beside her backpack, not dropped in panic. The equipment powers down as Sam approaches, though later analysis of the camera's audio track reveals it was still recording until that moment. "This doesn't make sense," Max whispers, the bravado completely gone from his voice. "She wouldn't leave the equipment." "Not Jess. She sleeps with that Sennheiser." The camera pans slowly across the scene, capturing details that would become crucial in the investigation. The lack of struggle signs, the precisely aligned equipment, and most disturbing, Jess's headlamp sitting upright, still illuminated, pointing deeper into the passage. "We need to go back," Sam says firmly, his voice adopting the tone of someone taking command. "Right now, Max, we mark this position and get help." Max's response changes everything. The camera captures his expression, transforming fear, giving way to something more calculated. "Do you know what this footage is worth now?" His voice drops to a whisper. "A real mystery, a real disappearance. This is the viral content I've been waiting for." "She could be injured," Sam counters, the camera shaking with his intensity. "Or it could be the biggest prank in YouTube history," Max replies, though his eyes betray he doesn't believe this. "Either way, we need to find her." The camera suddenly jerks upward, capturing a fleeting movement in the distance. It is a human-shaped figure moving with unnatural speed across a high ledge. Neither man reacts, the phenomenon visible only to the camera's enhanced light sensitivity. "I'm giving you an ultimatum," Sam says, unaware of what the camera has captured. "We leave now, or I'm going alone." The timestamp reads 18:47 when Max's face suddenly freezes. His eyes fixed on something behind Sam. The camera slowly turns, revealing what appears to be Jess standing at the far end of a tunnel. Her back to them, headlamp missing, her movements subtle but wrong, with her shoulders rotating at impossible angles. "Jess?" Max calls, his voice barely audible. The figure turns partially, its face obscured by shadow, before retreating deeper into the darkness. The camera's microphone captures what the men miss, a whispered voice that is not Jess's saying. "Follow." "There she is," Max shouts, already moving. "She's fine." "Jess, wait up." The footage shows Sam hesitating, then following, the critical decision that sealed their fate. The camera briefly captures a reflection in a water pool as they pass. 3 figures following behind them, visible only in reflection. moving in perfect synchronization with Max and Sam. The chapter ends with the timestamp 1903. The last confirmed time anyone would see either Max or Sam alive again. Darkness swallowed the weak beam of Max's headlamp as he pushed deeper into the forbidden section, his breathing echoing against ancient limestone walls. "This is Cavicking, going where no YouTuber has ever gone before," he whispered into his camera, voice trembling with what his subscribers would interpret as excitement rather than the fear that clawed at his insides. Behind him, Sam followed. Reluctantly, the secondary camera's light creating dancing shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. "We need to go back, Max. Jess is still missing, and our reserve batteries are almost dead." Sam's voice carried the weight of professional experience, but Max dismissed it with a wave of his hand, his eyes locked on the viewfinder. "Do you have any idea what this footage is worth? We're talking tens of millions of views. Career-changing content." Max adjusted his headlamp, revealing a passage that narrowed ahead. "Look at these formations. They're unnatural, geometrically impossible." Sam's camera swept across the cave walls, capturing what appeared to be deliberate carvings, not the random graffiti of previous explorers, but methodical patterns that predated modern visitation. "These aren't normal cave markings," he muttered, zooming in on symbols that resembled no known language. "Exactly. Internet conspiracy theorists will go crazy analyzing this." Max's voice rose with excitement as he traced the carvings with his fingers. "Ancient aliens, lost civilizations, dimensional portals." The comment section will explode with theories. The camera's microphone captured a sound neither man acknowledged, a faint whisper that seemed to respond to Max's touch on the symbols. Later analysis would reveal words in a language experts couldn't identify. Max pressed forward into a chamber that defied geological explanation. The ceiling soared upward beyond their light's reach, while perfectly smooth walls reflected their beams in ways that disoriented the senses. The camera footage became increasingly erratic as Sam struggled to maintain his composure. "Battery at 15%, Sam reported, professional instincts fighting against growing panic. "Temperatures dropping too. It was 58 degrees at the entrance. Now we're reading 43. "That's impossible," Max replied without turning around. "We've been moving deeper. It should be warmer." His own camera captured his face, sweat beating despite the chill, pupils dilated beyond what the darkness required. The footage jumped suddenly. A technical malfunction or deliberate edit never determined by later investigators. When it resumed, Max stood before a wall covered entirely in the strange symbols, his expression transformed by an almost religious fervor. "This is it, Sam. This is what we came for." Max's hands trembled as he filmed the wall. "This will break the internet. We're talking documentary deals, network interviews, sponsorships from major outdoor brands." Sam's camera caught what Max failed to notice. Shadows moving against the natural flow of their lights, condensing in corners where darkness shouldn't gather. "Max, something's wrong with the air in here. I'm having trouble focusing." The primary camera's footage showed Max pressing his palm against the central symbol, a spiraling pattern that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. "Can you feel that? It's vibrating." What happened next would become the subject of endless debate among viewers. Max's camera captured a sudden temperature drop, visible in the plume of his breath, while Sam's camera documented a series of rapid shadow movements, converging toward the wall. "Did you hear that?" Max turned, his expression changing from excitement to confusion. It sounded like Jess. Sam's camera swung wildly, briefly capturing a human-shaped silhouette at the chamber entrance, before the image distorted with digital artifacts. "There's someone there, Jess. Is that you?" The sound that answered wasn't Jess, at least not entirely. Later audio analysis would identify multiple voices overlapped, including patterns matching Jess's vocal signature, all speaking in perfect unison. Max's footage became increasingly unstable as he approached the figure, his headlamp flickering. "This is going to make us famous, Sam. Whatever's happening, keep filming." Those would be the last coherent words recorded. Sam's camera dropped to the ground, still recording as footsteps retreated rapidly into darkness. Max's light disappeared around a corner, his excited calls turning to confusion, then silence. For 78 seconds, the fallen camera recorded only darkness and what audio experts would later describe as multiple subjects breathing in synchronized patterns. When the light returned, it was Max's headlamp, but the footage showed only empty cave passages. The camera's final recording, Max's voice, oddly calm, speaking directly into the lens. "I understand now. It's beautiful down here. Come deeper. Sam, you need to see this too." Behind him, it was only darkness and something moving within it. Static crackles across the recovered footage as Max Reynolds' headlamp cuts through the oppressive darkness, the timestamp showing 37 hours into the expedition. "Sam." His voice echoes through the limestone chamber, bouncing back distorted and unrecognizable. The camera jerks with his movements, revealing geological formations that seem to defy natural law, stalactites curving horizontally rather than vertically. Rock surfaces with geometric patterns too precise to be formed by water erosion. "I was filming the North Chamber when he disappeared," Max narrates to his absent audience, professional demeanor crumbling as he pans across the empty cavern. "Just gone, equipment still running." The footage captures abandoned camera gear, a tripod positioned at an odd angle as if dropped mid-setup. "This is going to be the most viewed video in YouTube history," he whispers, a tremor evident in his voice portraying the fear beneath his bravado. Audio analysis would later reveal a low-frequency hum beginning at exactly 37 hours 42 minutes and 18 seconds into the footage, just below human hearing threshold during recording, but clearly present in the recovered video. Max doesn't react to it, continuing his progress deeper into the unmapped section. The thermal imaging attachment on his auxiliary camera activates automatically as ambient temperature drops suddenly by 12 degrees. "It's getting colder," Max notes, his breath visible now in the beam of his light. "Could be an underground water source nearby." Experts would later note this temperature anomaly contradicts all known geological surveys of the cave system. 42 minutes into the solitary exploration, Max's headlamp illuminates a chamber unlike any shown previously in the footage. The walls form perfect hexagonal columns extending upward beyond the light's reach. In the center stands what appears to be an altar-like formation, a flat stone surface approximately 4 feet high surrounded by smaller stalagmites in a circular pattern. "Holy shit," Max whispers, camera movements becoming more controlled as his documentary instincts take over. "This is unbelievable. This has to be man-made." He approaches the formation slowly, the audio picking up his accelerated breathing. "This chamber isn't on any of the cave maps. Nobody's ever documented this." The footage stabilizes as Max places the camera on a rock ledge, angling it to capture the entire chamber. He steps into frame, back to the camera, examining the strange altar, the carving on this central stone. It's not weather erosion. He traces what appears to be deliberate etchings. These look like symbols, maybe some kind of language. At 44 hours 13 minutes and 7 seconds, the camera's audio picks up a faint sound from the passage behind, what sound experts would later identify as footsteps, though with an unusual cadence and weight distribution unlike typical human movement. Max doesn't appear to notice, absorbed in his documentation of the chamber. "Sam?" Max calls out suddenly, turning toward one of the 6 passages leading from the hexagonal room. "Is that you?" The camera captures nothing in the darkness, but Max's expression changes dramatically. "How did you get over there so fast?" He retrieves the camera, movements now rushed and uncoordinated. "Sam's acting weird," he narrates, voice lower. "Won't respond to me." The footage becomes increasingly unstable as Max navigates toward a narrow crevice at the far side of the chamber. He went down here. I don't understand how he fits through this gap. The passage narrows to barely 18 inches wide, forcing Max to turn sideways. His breathing becomes labored, camera angles disorienting. As he struggles through the tight space, Sam. He calls again, voice now echoing strangely, as if in a much larger space than the narrow passage would suggest. At 47 hours 55 minutes and 22 seconds, the passage suddenly opens into darkness. The headlamp reveals only empty space ahead, suggesting an immense cavern beyond. The thermal imaging attachment malfunctions, screen showing only static. Max takes 3 steps forward before stopping abruptly. "What the hell is that?" he whispers. The camera tilts upward slowly, revealing nothing to the viewer except empty blackness. But Max's expression, now fully captured in the reflection from a glossy rock surface, shows pure terror. No, that's that's not possible." The camera jerks violently as Max stumbles backward. For precisely 1.3 seconds, 3 distinct figures appear in the frame. Silhouettes that analysis would confirm don't match the proportions of either Sam or Jess. Max's scream is cut short as the camera drops, capturing one final frame of his face. Eyes wide, mouth open right before the footage terminates completely. The final data point, the camera's internal thermometer recording a temperature, dropped to -4 degrees Celsius in the last recorded second of footage. Darkness clings to the Blackwater Cavern's entrance like a living entity as the 6-member rescue team checks their equipment one final time. Captain Sarah Reeves adjusts her helmet cam, its bright LED cutting through the pre-dawn gloom. 3 days since the YouTuber and his crew went missing. 3 days of families demanding answers. "Team check Protocol Alpha," Sarah commands her. Voice clipped with professional efficiency. Each team member reports in sequence. Davidson, comms operational, primary and backup. Martinez, medical ready, extended supply kit. Jackson, mapping tech online, 3-dimensional rendering active. Wells, tactical lead, all security measures in place. Cooper, equipment specialist, all recovery gear functional. Sarah nods. Satisfaction evident despite the grim circumstances. Mission parameters clear. This is search and recovery, not exploration. We find the missing subjects, assess the situation, and extract them immediately. No unnecessary risks. The limestone entrance swallows them whole as they begin their descent. Helmet cams recording everything. Standard operating procedure for high-risk recovery. The main passage shows signs of recent travel. Scuff marks, disturbed sediment patterns, a discarded energy bar wrapper. First marker confirmed, Martinez reports, photographing footprints, matching the descriptions of the missing team's boot treads. Consistent with subject movement, approximately 72 hours ago. Davidson maintains constant communication with base camp, transmitting their progress through the hardwired communication system. No radio signals penetrate this deep. The cavern ceiling drops suddenly, forcing them into a low crawl. Approaching the first restriction point, Wells announces, consulting the 3-dimensional map. Evidence of forced entry to the restricted section ahead. The security barrier lies in pieces, industrial bolt cutters abandoned nearby. Standard padlock and chain, never designed to stop determined trespassers. Sarah documents the scene methodically, while Cooper bags the cutters as evidence. Atmospheric readings are changing, Jackson warns, checking handheld meters. Oxygen levels are still safe, but CO2 is increasing. Air movement restricted in this section. 2 hours into the darkness, they find the first piece of abandoned equipment. A high-end directional microphone, Sennheiser model, belonging to the missing sound technician. The serial number matches their inventory list. Position marked, Sarah confirms. tagging the location on their digital map. No signs of struggle. Item appears deliberately placed, not dropped in haste. The passage narrows further, opening into a chamber not documented on any official cave survey. Martinez examines unusual scratch marks on the limestone wall. These aren't from climbing equipment. Pattern inconsistent with standard tools. Temperature dropping, Davidson notes, checking the thermal readout. 2 degrees cooler than predicted for this depth. Wells freezes suddenly, hand raised in silent command. The team halts immediately, training evident in their synchronized response. Movement ahead. Approximately 30 meters. Nothing appears in their light beams. The thermal imaging shows no heat signatures. Yet something disturbed the cave dust, creating swirling patterns in the stale air. Proceed with caution, Sarah orders, her voice steady despite the irregular readings on their equipment. Standard formation, 5-meter intervals. The chamber opens into a massive cavern, ceiling lost in darkness despite their powerful lights. Stalactites hang like frozen daggers above crystal-clear pools of water. Beauty disguising danger. Multiple footprint patterns, Cooper reports, photographing the disturbed cave floor. 3 distinct individuals moving erratically, no clear direction of travel. Davidson's equipment emits a sudden high-pitched tone. Electromagnetic anomaly. Equipment malfunction. His backup systems activate automatically, military-grade failsafes engaging. Jackson spots it first. A professional-grade camera lying abandoned beside a narrow fissure in the far wall. The camera shows signs of impact damage, but its memory card remains intact. Primary objective located, Sarah announces as Cooper secures the device in a protective case. Evidence secured. Martinez examines the surrounding area, finding no blood, no signs of physical trauma. No biological indicators of injury. The team's lights suddenly flicker in unison. Battery drain occurring at impossible rates. Cooper checks his equipment readouts. Power failure imminent across all devices. Sarah makes the call instantly. Extraction protocol initiated. We have the footage. Full retreat. Maintain formation. As they turn to leave, their helmet cams capture something the human eye misses. A momentary shadow moving against the darkness, gone before conscious recognition. Double time, Sarah orders, instinct overriding curiosity. 15 years of cave. Rescue experience screaming warnings her logical mind cannot process. The team ascends with professional efficiency. Equipment failures multiplying as they climb. Only the most hardened devices continue functioning. Davidson's communication link to base camp is intact, transmitting fragments of data ahead of their emergence. They exit the cave exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes after entry. The recovered camera clutched in Cooper's hands contains answers they're not prepared to face. Whatever happened to Max Cavicking Reynolds and his crew? The footage will tell the story their bodies cannot. Digital Forensics Lab, DIA-7 hummed with activity as Dr. Sarah Chun calibrated the advanced imaging equipment, her fingers moving with practiced precision across specialized controls. The recovered camera from Blackwater Caverns sat sealed in an evidence container, its damaged exterior telling only part of the story. Behind reinforced glass, 3 specialists monitored readings as the memory card underwent preliminary scanning. Memory. Architecture intact, Senior Technician Marcus Dawson reported, his voice carrying the measured tone of someone who'd processed hundreds of similar recoveries. Surprisingly limited corruption given the environmental conditions. He adjusted several parameters on his workstation. Thermal imaging showing the card's internal structure in vivid reds and blues. The cave rescue team commander, Captain Robert Hayes, watched from his position near the main display wall, his weathered face reflecting 22 years of recovery operations. Unlike the others, his attention remained fixed on topographical displays of Blackwater's forbidden section, rather than the technology processing the footage. Baseline scan complete, Dr. Chun announced, initiating the data transfer protocol. Beginning primary extraction sequence. The first images from Max Reynolds' camera appeared on the main screen, crystal clear despite the circumstances of their recovery. The timestamp read 72 hours earlier, the beginning of Kavaking's final expedition. The room fell silent as technicians tracked multiple data points: audio waveforms, metadata analysis, frame integrity markers. Standard vlog introduction, analyst Patel noted, documenting the opening sequence. Subject appears normal, consistent with previous content patterns. Captain Hayes stepped closer, eyes narrowing at footage showing the cave entrance. Pause there, he commanded. Enhance Sector 7. The image sharpened, revealing subtle markings near the cave warning signs that weren't standard geological formations. Those weren't documented in our survey, Hayes stated flatly. And they don't match natural erosion patterns. Dr. Chun's fingers moved rapidly across specialized keys, initiating spectral analysis on those formations. The computer processed the request, highlighting elements invisible to normal viewing, organic compounds present, some form of bioluminescent residue, dormant during filming. The footage continued. Reynolds and his team proceeded deeper, passing multiple warning barriers. Their banter became strained as they penetrated restricted areas. Specialists documented each frame, creating reference points against the cave's mapped sections. Time. Compression initiated for overview assessment, Dr. Chun announced. The footage now advancing at 8x speed while maintaining analysis integrity, at the 47-minute mark. Technician Dawson suddenly straightened. Anomaly detected in audio track. He isolated the sequence, enhancing specific frequencies. Through laboratory-grade speakers, what initially registered as cave ambience transformed into something else entirely. Voices, multiple voices speaking. Simultaneously, none belonging to the exploration team. Timestamp correlates with first equipment malfunctions. Analyst Patel observed, cross-referencing against their timeline. Subject shows no awareness of audio phenomena. Captain Hayes directed their attention to shadow movements in frame corners, barely perceptible at normal viewing speeds. Similar patterns appeared in the kosher expedition footage from 2016. 3 fatalities. Camera recovered under similar circumstances. The analysis continued methodically, frame by frame. Each team member documenting their specialized observations as Reynolds' final journey unfolded on screen. The evidence building toward conclusions none wanted to verbalize. Final footage segment. Approaching, Dr. Chun announced, her professional tone unchanged despite the disturbing content progression. The team watched as Max Reynolds, alone and disoriented, discovered the geometric chamber. His camera movements became erratic, his breathing increasingly labored. The footage quality deteriorated not from equipment failure, but from Reynolds' physical decline. Thermal signature detected, Dawson reported suddenly. Multiple heat sources surrounding the subject, not visible in the standard spectrum. The final moments appeared on screen. Reynolds turned suddenly, the camera capturing his expression of pure terror before falling. 18 seconds of darkness followed, punctuated by sounds no human throat could produce. Then, unexpectedly, the footage stabilized. A single perfectly focused frame. "What the hell?" Captain Hayes whispered, professional demeanor cracking for. The first time, the image showed Max Reynolds, camera operator Sam Marshall, and sound technician Jess Chun standing deep within the cave, arranged in an unnatural semicircle. Their expressions blank, eyes reflecting light where no light source existed. Behind them, taller figures remained partially obscured by darkness, only their elongated limbs clearly visible, all staring directly at the camera. "This isn't possible," Analyst Patel stated, reviewing timeline data. "This frame is timestamped. 4 hours after the final documented footage, Dr. Chun studied the image with clinical detachment. Note the geometric formations. They don't match any documented chamber in the Blackwater system. Her finger traced unusual patterns visible on the cave walls. These markings match prehistoric cave paintings found in 3 separate continents, all associated with disappearance legends. Captain Hayes stared at the impossible image, 22 years of experience providing no explanation for what they were seeing. "Prepare full spectrum analysis," he ordered finally, "and contact the department. They need to permanently seal Blackwater caverns." As the team processed his instructions, no one mentioned the most disturbing detail. The camera that captured this final image had been found over 2 miles from the position it was apparently filming, or that according to its internal diagnostics, it had continued recording for 37 more hours after its battery had completely depleted.